this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I call Chris Hipkins, 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the protection of the public is the core business of the police. And it seems staggering in this day and age that members have to rise in the House to state that very obvious fact. And let's look at the purpose of this bill that we're debating, the Policing Cost Recovery Amendment Bill. And in the Select Committee's explanatory note, they say that this bill will allow the police to charge people effectively for, quote, services that are, quote, direct private benefit to that individual or organisation. And let's look at the first one that has been identified as a service that the police might be charging for, and that is police vetting. Let's consider the example of an early childhood centre using police vetting and being charged under this bill for the police vetting that they are using. Under this bill, that would be deemed to be a private benefit to that individual or organisation. But I'd put it to the members opposite. Who actually really benefits from the police vetting of people working in early childhood education centres? It isn't actually the centres who are the primary beneficiary of that. It is the children who are attending those services who are the primary beneficiary of police vetting. That is why we have a regulation that requires centres to do that. So yes, it helps centres to meet their regulatory responsibilities, but actually we do that because it keeps the children safe, which is the core job of the police, is keeping people safe. And that is why we have police vetting. And so the members opposite mentioned, well, all the police districts in Australia do that. Interestingly enough, the cost of doing so for the organisations who pay for police vetting is over $50 per police vet. So they're talking about a cost in New Zealand when they introduce this of around $7 per vet. How long will it be before we catch up with Australia, which seems to be the goal of the members opposite if you listen to what they're saying, and people are having to pay $50 per police vet? Take an early childhood education centre who might have half a dozen staff, maybe more actually, probably let's say a dozen people working in an early childhood education service. That's a significant cost. And ultimately, where does their funding come from? A community-based early childhood education service, most of their funding comes from government. So this is government kind of robbing from one recipient of government funding in order to give to another. And and all of the transaction costs that goes with that, which is, of course, we've got a government here who don't like transfer payments. They're actually just creating a whole new regime of them. But the fundamental issue that's missing here is that the job of police is to keep children safe and keep people safe. So why would they be charging and making it difficult for organisations to vet the people they're working with? Consider a voluntary organisation, a club or a society that uses police vetting in order to keep children safe. We're told by the government, simply rely on the minister exempting those organisations, and yet there is no guarantee in this legislation that the minister will do so. And what's even more concerning is if you look at the second part of this bill, which creates the regulation-making power, it basically allows the Minister of Police, without reference to the House, to impose a new form of tax. So the Minister of Police can decide which police services will be charged for. It basically gives the Minister of Police the absolute power to determine which police services are charged for, and aside from the ability of the Regulations Review Committee to review that, this House has no say in that. That's not right. That's why we are elected. Now, if the government want to come to the House and say, we think these police services should be charged for, as they do with tax, they've got to come to the House and say, these are the taxes and levies that we think New Zealanders should be charged, and the Parliament then debates them and votes on them. This doesn't create the environment where that would happen. This just says it's completely up to the Minister, and they can do that without reference back to the House, and they can change that at will, simply by order in council. That's not good enough. If they're going to start charging for police services, they should at least have public scrutiny around that. They should at least bring those proposals to the House and have them debated in the form of a bill, but they're not willing to do that. And I think that that's wrong, and I'm sure we'll get into the debate on that when this bill comes up for the committee stages. Ultimately, this is the first step in user pays policing. They've given the example of police vetting as a service that may be charged for, but there could be others. There could be plenty of others that fall within that definition. And the question becomes, go right back to that comment I made at the beginning, determining what is a private benefit to the individual or organisation is very difficult, because actually Most police services, even if they're provided directly to an organisation, are for the purposes of keeping the public safe, which is the core business of the police.